I call on President Larson to preside over the presentation and conferring of an honorary degree.
I call Mr. Terry Carlton, former chair and current member of the Bentley Board of Trustees and 1977 Bentley alumnus, to present Mr. Joseph Moglia for conferral of his honorary degree. Joseph A. Moglia, H. Moglia, sorry for that, astute and inspiring leader of winning teams, whether focused on the bottom line or the goal line. We are proud to confer on you today the honorary degree of Doctor of Commercial Science, your trade in bold moves that changed the game. The son of immigrant parents, you harness ambition to a fierce work ethic. From age 10, you put in 6-day work weeks every summer at your father's New York fruit market. He sometimes ventured into a different kind of market. You took note. Your first stock investment was in Chrysler, 10 shares, bought at 50, sold at 11. It was a hard lesson for a 15-year-old, but instilled a keen respect for the principles of risk and reward. A love of sports set your early trajectory. From coaching football at Fordham Prep and Fordham University, both your alma maters, you moved on to Dartmouth and Lafayette. League championships and broken school records marked your 16 years on the gridiron. Then in 1984, a career pivot. You went off to Merrill Lynch for an MBA training program with family and financial security top of mind. In 4 short years, the firm's only former football coach was its #1 producer in the world. Moving on to Ameritrade, now TD Ameritrade, you rallied colleagues around what was a struggling company in 2001. Your 7 years as CEO pushed client assets to $280 billion and market capitalization to $10 billion. 6 years back, as contemporaries eyed retirement, you plotted a comeback. Talent and resolve would clinch your dream job, head coach of a Division I football program. Most recently, you've led the Coastal Carolina University Chanticleers to 2 conference championships in as many years. And the team ranked 89th before your arrival is now #7 in the nation. You lead with a steady hand and a cool head. The return to coaching ups your game with a full heart. There's no finer model of smarts and passion for our graduates to follow. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and by the Bentley University Board of Trustees, we confer upon you, Joseph Moglia, the degree Doctor of Commercial Science, honoris causa. We hold it a huge pleasure and a huge honor to do so.
I now call upon Joseph Moglia to deliver the commencement address.
Well, thank you so much, Madam President. And I know this is a big day for everybody. I recognize that. I want you to know that it's an incredibly exciting and a big day for me as well. It is a big deal for me to be here. It's not just the recent honor, but 14 years ago, my son Kevin and my son-in-law Robbie graduated from Bentley. So I've had an opportunity many times over the years while they were here and subsequently to that to be on this campus. And I couldn't be prouder in what Robbie's doing as an entrepreneur, owning his own business and running his own business. And I couldn't be prouder of the career that Kevin is enjoying at Merrill Lynch. Each of those guys, if you ask them, what is it that distinguished you from others, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you've got a job on Wall Street? And each of them, bar none, would say, because of the education and the experiences I received as a student and as an athlete at Bentley. So I will always feel an incredible respect, admiration, and the debt of gratitude to Bentley for, frankly, the impact that they've had on my family. That's why it's a very, very big deal for me to be here today. I'd also like to do a quick shout out to, I want to thank Bob DeFelice because, frankly, of the impact that he had on Kevin when he was here and the impact he's had on my family because of that over the years. I haven't thanked you enough, Bobby, for that, and I wanted to make a point of that now. By the way, will somebody tell that guy that your school colors are actually blue and white, not black? When you think about what school you're going to go to, I mean, the reputation that Bentley has today is just incredible. You have national recognition, and this is the place where people want to go. Well, about 20 years ago now, when Kevin was getting ready to go to school, it wasn't quite as significant. And when Kevin was graduating from high school, one of the things we had talked about was how important this next decision was going to be in his life, and he knew it was important. And he said, Dad, frankly, this is one of the things, I can't make a mistake on this one. Wherever I go is going to shape my life, and I got to make the right decision, and I'm really kind of nervous about this. And I said, son, you are 17 years old. You are mature enough, you are man enough to be able to make this decision on your own. This is something you should think about. Use a legal pad. Put down the pluses and the minuses of the different schools you're thinking about. But at the end of the day, you are truly mature enough and man enough to make this decision. You won't make a mistake. About a week later, he's got to make a decision like the following day, and he says, Dad, he calls me and says, Dad, I'm still nervous. I said, have you decided anything? He says, no, I'm kind of close between two schools. I didn't even ask him who, but I knew Bentley was one of them. And I said, go to bed tonight. Maybe you say a prayer. Think about which way you're really leaning. Have good reasons for that. When you wake up in the morning, if you still have those feelings, that's the school you're supposed to go to. The next morning, Kevin and I sit down. I ask him, have you made a decision? He says, yes, Dad. I said, did you think this through? He said, yes, Dad. I said, you do the pluses and the minuses? Yes. Did you say a little prayer about this? Yes. What have you decided? He says, Dad, I'm going to go to Boston University. So I go, so I go, well, why is that? He says, well, I like the idea that they're in Boston. They have a good athletic program and a really pretty good business program. I said, okay. I said, are you aware of the education that you could get at Bentley? Are you aware of the fact that the student body is known for being nimble, for being compassionate, for being committed, for being hardworking? Are you aware of that? Are you aware that that campus is about people and a planet, not just profits? Are you aware of that? Do you recognize that they actually take their curriculums and they combine the business with the liberal arts? Do you know they do a better job of getting internships for the students than probably any other university in the country? Are you aware of that? And by the way, they have incredible facilities. They've got an incredible athletic program, an incredible undergraduate program, and I think they will wind up upsetting BU in hockey, and I have no doubt that the women's basketball team will win a national championship. Kevin, clearly you're not man enough or mature enough to make this decision on your own. You are going to Bentley University. And he's never regretted that. I thought there are a handful of things that I'd like to be able to share with you today that I think are competitive differentiators. But before I do that, I'd like to be able to share a little bit of my private background, not the resume stuff. And I wanted to do this so you have an understanding kind of where I'm coming from. My dad was born in Italy. He came to this country when he was 11. He never finished 8th grade. He sold bananas and apples in the Bronx his entire life. My mom was born in Ireland. She came to this country to marry my dad when she was 24. She never finished high school. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. 7 of us lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment in the Dyckman Street section of New York, which is a gang area. I was part of a gang from the time I was about 10. 2 of my very, very best friends, I was with these guys every day in grammar school, got killed in high school. One of them died of a drug overdose. The other one was killed by the police robbing a liquor store. Had I not been playing football at Fordham Prep, I absolutely would have been with a guy robbing the liquor store. My goal was to play football and baseball in college. And then my girlfriend got pregnant. So I sit down with my father. And my dad said to me that we had decided we were going to get married. My dad said to me, son, remember, he never finished 8th grade. He said, you should not go to college. You should work with me in the fruit store. Together, we'll do a great job, and you'll always be able to provide for your family. Now, this is my father telling his 18-year-old son not to go to college. And I remember thinking about it, Dad, and I said, Dad, I love you, and I've worked in the store from the time I was a kid, and if I don't go to college and I'm in the fruit store, I'll be in the fruit store the rest of my life. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think there may be other things that I need to do with my life, and I want to be able to go to college. If I don't do that, I'll never be able to achieve those. And he said, but there's no money. And I said, I know, I got to figure that out. And I would have loved to have gotten a Bentley, but the fact is I had to pay for my education myself. So I wound up staying nearby. I wound up going to Fordham, so I didn't have to worry about room and board. So my freshman year, I am responsible for my wife, for my daughter, and 100% of my education. I am driving a yellow New York City taxi cab, a truck for the post office, and working for my dad in the fruit store. Now, some of you will be shocked to hear this, but that wasn't the most fun a freshman ever had in the history of freshmen going to college. What wound up happening, I majored in economics, always had an interest in business, always had an interest in Wall Street, and I began coaching. So my next 3 years, I majored in economics. I coached high school football during the season and worked for my dad in the fruit store. I then began coaching later on, went to Wall Street. So I've had the opportunity, I wanted you to be aware of that background. So I've had the opportunity now to spend over 2 decades in my life in football and over 2 decades in my life on Wall Street. And there are some things that I truly, absolutely, really believe in. I believe in it in athletics, I believe in education, and I believe in it in the business world. What I'm going to share with you are what I believe are absolute competitive advantages. They will make a difference in your life, and they will make a difference as you graduate. The first one is clearly you already have an advantage because you're graduating from Bentley. Bentley really does have a reputation in the marketplace that's only going to do you well. But you've got to compete against some people that also wind up going to some pretty good schools. Maybe not Bentley, but they're going to some pretty good schools. So how do you differentiate? Principle 1. This is about standing on your own 2 feet and accepting responsibility for yourself. Period. That's it. What happens is too often we grow up, and you may not feel this, but it happens subconsciously. We grow up with the idea we're entitled. Somebody's going to take care of it for us. Somebody's going to get it done for us. Somebody's going to help us out with that. The reality is, starting like literally right now, you stand on your own on 2 feet. You got to take responsibility for yourself, and you're going to wind up living with the consequences of your actions. Principle 1. Second principle, spiritual soundness. Now, spiritual soundness it can be religious, but it doesn't need to be by any stretch of the imagination. It's getting to know who you are, really having an understanding of who you are. Now, the reality is we're all part of the perceptions that we have in the different relationships within our lives. So, we are a little bit different with the friend. We're a little bit different with a boyfriend, girlfriend. We're a little bit different with a parent, a little bit different with a teacher or coach. All those things tend to shape our lives somewhat. But not that many people really deep down in the heart, honest to God, know who they are. Now, most people never go through this exercise. I'm suggesting you think about this. You actually write down on a piece of paper, take a legal pad. And by the way, you will keep changing your mind as you go back and look at the pad, and it'll take you about a year to get to the point you say, you know what, I really know who I am. But this time, you don't even share it with anybody, because once you start to share with somebody else, you've got the perceptions of that person and what you think of that person, and their influence on you are going to be in your mind someplace. So this is about you. You don't share with anybody else. It's a pure examination of conscience. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Who am I really? What turns me on? What turns me off? What makes me tick? What are my skill sets? If you really get to the point where you really know who you are, and by the way, there's very few people. If you really, really know who you are, you will have peace of mind. Now, why is that important? Because what's going to happen, you've seen this so far in your lives, but it's only going to exponentially grow as time goes on. It's how you're going to be able to handle yourself under stress, how you're going to be able to handle yourself under chaos that's going to determine how effective and successful you're going to be. So the better you know yourself, the better your peace of mind, the better the decisions you will make under stress. The better the decisions you make under stress, the more productive you will be. The more productive you will be, the better you'll feel about yourself. The better you feel about yourself, the happier you will be. That's what it's all about. Principle 3, dedication and passion. You have worked hard. That is one of the pieces of Bentley that everybody in the workplace understands and recognizes, that you work hard. But guess what? That's not over with. You're going to have to continue to work hard. There's no such a thing as achieving greatness without work. The only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. And at the end of the day, it's also about passion. If you wind up doing something with your life that you don't really care about, it's going to be a job. Jobs become drags after a while. If you do something you're passionate about and you care about and you love, it becomes a career path that becomes exciting and challenging. There are 2 reasons why people fail. Most of the time people say, because they're not cut out for the job. Not true. The reason why people fail is because they either don't work hard enough or they don't love what they're doing. Next principle, courage. Courage is the guts to do what you believe is right. The guts to do what you believe is right. That's the DNA. That's the DNA of Bentley. You have a moral campus on your campus. You have a moral compass on your campus. You are the ones that created that. You're the ones that developed that. You're the ones that live that. It's what Bentley is known for. It's not an accident that Bentley University is the first institution in this country that established a center for business and ethics. That's not an accident. You should be proud of that. But now I want you to think inwardly for a moment. Think about yourself. You play a lot of roles. We all play a lot of roles. You're going to play more going forward. Boyfriend, girlfriend, son, daughter, sibling, colleague, teammate, friend, a parent. A lot of roles you play. And the reality is, if you go back to the idea of dedication to hard work, dedication is working as hard as you can to be the best you can be. Courage is the guts to do what you believe is right. It's easy in any of those roles to cheat. It's easy in any of those roles to take a shortcut. But the bottom line is, we all know the difference between good and wrong. Work as hard as you can to do what's right. Work as hard as you can to do what's right. And it's a bigger picture than only us sitting here. And I'd be totally remiss if I didn't talk about the situation that we have today in the world. With a school that's about people and planet, I'd be remiss if I'm not talking about this. We believe we live in the greatest country in the world, and we do live in the greatest country in the world. But there are hundreds of thousands of people in the world with unlimited funding that will not hesitate to give up their lives because they think what we do is evil. We are the infidels. They are told from the time they are children, they will be rewarded in the afterlife for taking away our lives and our freedoms. Terrorism is something that is here today, and it's something you got to pay a little bit of attention to, because it's going to be with all of you your entire lives and probably your children's lives. It's here to stay. So once you understand that, you've got to then understand what's going on with regard to the military, that there are people that are willing to put their lives on the line to protect us. How many mothers do you think over time have sent letters to the president that began with, Mr. President, why did my son have to die in Valley Forge? Mr. President, why did my son have to die in Gettysburg? Mr. President, why did my son have to die in Korea or Vietnam? Why did my son or daughter, Mr. President, have to die in some desert in the Middle East? Why? Every time it's the same answer. So we can live in freedom. So we can live in freedom and have the right and the opportunity to go to institutions like Bentley University. I have often asked parents that have lost children in defense of our freedom how they felt about that, and if they could say anything to us for whom their son or daughter sacrificed their lives, what would it be? And this, I'm using my own words, but they always say one of 3 things. I'd like you to be able to appreciate what happened. I'd like you to be able, by the way, we live in freedom, but with that freedom comes a sense of responsibility. Stand on your own 2 feet and take responsibility for yourself. And I'd like you to have the guts to do what you believe is right. I think we kind of owe them that. The last principle I think is the most important. It's love. This is the power of love. It's the commitment to the well-being of others. You can see this on a campus like this. Frankly, so often when I've walked through this campus, I see people, like saying hello to people even say hello to me. They don't even know who I am. They're saying hello to me. They're helping each other out. You've got an attitude of collegiality. It's an affection. There's an affection. That's part of what separates you from other schools. It's easy to see this in team sports. It's easy to see it. So I would have no doubt that the coaches and the players of our national championship team would say that caring about other people on the team, worrying about the other needs of the people on the team, worrying about somebody else, part of the reason why they were as successful as they were. But I think where you really see this, I think you really see it in the family. And I'd like to take a moment now, and I'd like to kind of talk about the parents for a second. An exciting day. You'll probably be celebrating as well tomorrow. Many of your parents had to make real sacrifices so you could come here. Amidst all the congratulations and the presents, please, please, please don't forget to say thank you to your mom and dad. Don't forget that. Another thought on parents. I've had this in my family. All of you have had this. There are conflicts sometimes arise from the parent's job and what you feel your role is. And sometimes there's conflict. I'd like you to keep a couple things in mind the next time you have conflict with your parents. Number one, this is a great day. 4 years ago, you were graduating from high school. Does anybody in this room actually feel that they were wiser and smarter when they were graduating from high school than where they are today? Because, not just because of your experience, because of the 4 years worth of experience. Well, the next time you have conflict with your parents, keep this in mind. Number one, that's the experience they have. They have been there and they have done that. And sometimes you act like you think they don't get it. The reality is, just like you are far better, far wiser, smarter today because you were more experienced than you were 4 years ago, that's true of your parents. Secondly, it is their job to help you and guide you. And thirdly, there is nobody in the world that loves you more than they do. And it's the power of love. And I want to be able to share. And I want to be able to share a couple of personal stories along that line with my family. When I was 13, we had a little family meeting, and my parents told us that my mom was going to be in the hospital for a few days. Other than she having babies, nobody in our family ever went in the hospital. Frankly, we didn't think much of it. That night, I remember seeing my dad on his knees on the bed crying. My dad died about 5 years ago of Alzheimer's when he was in his late 80s. It was the only time in my life I ever saw my father cry. I asked him what was the matter. He says, "Son, I'm really, really worried about Mommy." I went to bed that night. Remember, I was a gang kid. I thought I was a real badass. And my dad was a hard worker. The glass was always half empty. Frankly, I think part of this because he didn't really love what he did. My mom was the opposite. Her heart was big. She was always smiling. The glass was always half full. And her entire life were her 5 children. And I knew that. Remember, she was an Irish immigrant. She came over here. By the way, nobody from her family could afford to come over here. She was the only person over here. Her life were her children. I was the oldest. And it hit me. I had never, ever told my mom that I loved her. I remember praying that night. Say, "God, if you take care of Mom, I promise I'll never let that happen." Mom eventually came home, and I never let that happen again. Fast forward a little bit. It's 9/11, 13 years ago. I have just left Merrill Lynch, downtown New York City, and I've just taken the job at Ameritrade. My son, Kevin, is in his first or second year at Merrill Lynch. My daughter, Kara, is at Merrill Lynch, which is about 100 yards from the World Trade Center. My other daughter, Kim, who's the one that married the guy from Bentley, she lives in Brooklyn. Now, I see everything happening, and I care, but I can't do much about that. And what I've got to worry about is right now, I've got to worry about the safety and the well-being of our employees, and I've got to worry about protecting our clients' assets. We go into work, we go in emergency mode. A little later on that morning, I get a call from my daughter, Kim, saying, Dad, I spoke to Kevin and Kara. Both of them are okay. I just wanted you to know that. I said, Kim, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate this. About an hour later, she says, Dad, Merrill Lynch is evacuating the building. Everybody's going across the river to Jersey City. Earlier that afternoon, I get a call again from Kim. She says, Dad, I just spoke to Kara. She's in Jersey City. She's really stressed out, but she's okay. The last time anybody saw Kevin, he was going over the site to see if he could help out. Dad, have you heard from Kevin? I said, no, Kim. Now, by that time, both towers had gone down. And I had a reasonable idea what was going on. And again, I couldn't do much about it. But I remember going through the rest of that day with an overpowering feeling that I probably lost my son. But there was one little piece that helped me. And that was because of the experience I had with my mom, that had I lost my son that day, there was nothing that I would have wanted to tell him that I hadn't already told him. Don't ever let too much time go by without telling somebody you care about how you feel. For me, where I grew up, I could just as easily have wound up in jail or wound up in a fruit store. And for me to get the opportunity to come back to Bentley, a school that I have so much respect and affection and admiration for, that's had a major impact on my family. My son Kevin made it, by the way. He's here today. Sometimes I forget that part, and people come up, I'm so sorry about your son. To be able to come back here, one of the most incredible honors of my life. For you. You are Bentley University graduates. If you can go on with your life, taking responsibility for yourself, standing on your own 2 feet, being spiritually sound enough so you really, really know who you are, face life in your career with dedication and passion, work hard at having the guts to do what you believe is right, and understanding the spirit of love, the power of love, where you're always thinking about others. You will differentiate yourself in the world. You will be happier in the world. You will be more productive. At the end of the day, you are always going to be part of Bentley University. Bentley University is always going to be part of you. You are falcons. You will soar high. You will soar strong. To the families and to the graduates, from the bottom of my heart, God bless you and congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moglia. To preside